This whole argument about Iran. Now, Iran is not a part of the Houthis, has not, as you said, hasn't done really anything except very token gestures. This is a homegrown resistance against Hadi, President Hadi, who's been deposed by the Houthis. So, do you think that this is basically a part of whipping up what you said for internal purposes and external enemy?
Absolutely. And this is Saudis are doing it, Americans. John Kerry says that they're going to help this, do this, that, and the other for the defense of Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is attacking Yemen.
Attacking Yemen. The Houthis have not invaded Saudi Arabia. So
and they've also said violating international boundaries, which is what Syria is doing, which is what Saudis are doing, which is what Americans are doing, and claiming Iran is doing it.
Right.
So cynical doublespeak.
Cynical doublespeak, and do you notice that ever since the Houthis moved and the Saudis started preparing for it, sometime in latter part of March, Americans stopped their drone warfare against Al-Qaeda in Yemen. They took away their special forces, but also stopped drone warfare. What was happening on the ground? How does all of this add up? It does not. Americans cannot pretend that their enemy in Yemen is Al-Qaeda in Arabia or whatever they call themselves, in the peninsula. That is the main enemy. And they allowed them to take over major cities and large areas and withdraw their drone warfare against them so that Houthis can be beaten by everybody.
Syria also they are aligning, as you are aware of, with Jabhat al-Nusra, which is again another...
Well, their alignments there also keep shifting from the Free Syrian Army, which was largely, which had two different factions, one that was sponsored by the Saudis and the other which was Muslim Brotherhood. Americans gave arms to them, they gave arms to these people. So those also keep shifting. There are two or three other Islamist factions to whom these arms are going, and Americans know perfectly well that their arms go to IS. You see, one of the things I think that is also going on is that as the imperial center becomes weaker and more unable to control all the fires that it keeps igniting, it actually has to do more and more through its proxies. And then it has to also concede to the needs of those proxies, which may sometimes conflict with what Americans want. In this particular case, what you have is a whole coalition of monarchies which are proxies of the Americans. And then they have a proxy, which is the largest Arab country, which is Egypt, where they have already given $23 billion to Sisi. And next year, he's slated to get another 12. And therefore, he does whatever he's asked to do, or much of what he's asked to do. I think he was probably asked to do very much more than he's actually.
I think that's the interesting part. Both Egypt, as you said, only did a naval blockade. They haven't done more than that. Pakistan, in spite of being helped by Saudi Arabia in different ways, and Nawaz Sharif being so close to the Saudis,
they saved his skin.
They saved his skin. He's got property over there. He's got manufacturing.
When Nawaz Sharif made a coup against his own army chief, Musharraf, and Musharraf made a counter coup, Saudis saved his life and brought him to live there. Twice he has gone to live there, escaping from Pakistan and property and all that. So he is not able to deliver 3 divisions of the army.
Things are not looking good in spite of having the proxies of the proxies, as you said.
This seems to be a bonfire of monarchical and imperialist vanities. It doesn't add up.
And it's the first time you're seeing also Turkey and even Pakistan talking to Iran to see how the Yemen question can...
These are the 3 countries whose top diplomats and heads of states actually are rushing around talking to each other saying, Now, how do we deal with this?
Iran is not an ally of either Turkey or Pakistan.
Quite the
It's
opposite.
quite the opposite.
I mean, Turkey is funding the war in Syria, is the main player in Syria against Iran.
So, in all this, there is a sense of what you are saying is that the proxies have different agenda, and the imperial center, the United States, is not able to bind them to a common purpose. So, the US is also in each area behaving differently depending on whose its immediate alignments are with.
Prabir, they have created so many crises that they can no longer have a coherent foreign policy against any of them.
One interesting fact which is not so widely known about Yemen, it may be lacking food at the moment for various reasons, but the guns are not in shortage. They have 3 times more guns than people. So this is a tough area.
And for a very long time, which means there's not just guns floating around as they are in Pakistan also, but there are people who know how to use them. So these are going to carry on fighting. These are tough fighters. They are mountain people, just like the Pashtuns. They do not accept this kind of foreign thing, and resentments of Saudi Arabia, particularly both monarchical, partly sectarian, but above all, these are people who have taken Yemeni territory, etc., etc. They come invading us. We are going to go back into the mountains and see what they do.
So this, for Saudi Arabia, which is a neighboring place with all its own internal fissures, could mean something which could be very welcome indeed if what you said happens. That means if a senile Salman, backed by a PlayStation make-believe defense minister, his son, they all come under the threat of being actually deposed by this radicalization of the army that may take place as a result of the war.
You see, American intelligence people have been, 2 years ago, the American intelligence people assembled a report which said that the situation in Saudi Arabia is somewhat similar to the one prevailing in Iran in the mid-70s. They pinned that whole thing on sentiments in the armed forces. Saudis have always been afraid of their armed forces. Pakistanis, I don't know whether it's still happening, Pakistanis have defended the perimeters of their capital. They do not allow Saudi troops to come near the capital. They are afraid of them.
Estimated 7,000 Pakistan troops still guard the various installation of the royal family.
Yeah, right. A prolonged warfare that involves that army. If they don't get any troops, what are they going to do? Either they retreat or they put in some of their own troops there. Saudis start dying. Impossible. That little intervention that they had in Bahrain, they had Pakistani mercenaries coming in there through private agencies that were working with the Pakistan military to quickly get some mercenaries out there. In a place like Bahrain, they could not commit any troops of their own. How are they going to do it in Yemen against this very seasoned fighting force?
Thanks, Aijaz. I think this is going to be really something which will for the first time involve Saudi Arabia in a way it has never been involved before, which is really military warfare of some kind. Earlier it was always protected by the United States doing things for them, Pakistan doing things for them. This time they are on
now
the front
they've
line.
gone out there for themselves.
They are the front line. So hopefully this will mean at least a beginning of maybe the downfall of the Saudi royal family, House of Saud, and more importantly a possible therefore weakening of Wahhabi Islam, which is what the Saudis have been pushing with their petrodollars everywhere against the inclusive Islam.
If the house falls to that kind of force.
So let's hope it does, but of course this will be a long fall. It's not going to happen in a day.
And things are so chaotic, it's impossible to predict
anything. But as I said, that there is always hope that things may turn out for the better, and for the things to turn out better in this part of the world, the monarchies have to fall.
Absolutely.
You cannot have a combination of monarchies and stabilized West Asia and a democratic West Asia. It's a contradiction.
Since 2011, the Arab Spring, so-called, created enormous crises in countries that had overthrown monarchies: Syria, Egypt, Iraq, Libya, where Republican sentiment is extremely widespread. None of the monarchies.
Thank you very much. Let's watch what unfolds in the West Asia in the near future and the middle, not so near future. Thank you very much.